What's up guys, Chris here, and it's finally time to talk about Chapter 2 of Yomi no Tsugai, or Tsugai of the Underworld. And before that, I gotta say thank you to everybody that made that first chapter review, very successful. It reached over 1,000 views with a little over a week, and that's the fastest that any chapter review on my entire channel has ever gotten to, reaching that amount of views in less than a week or two. So that is honestly really great, and if we keep this up, I will continue to do Yomi no Tsugai videos this time going forward. And the funny thing is, when I first did that chapter review, I thought this was a weekly or bi-weekly release, until I realized a few days later that it was in fact a monthly serialization. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Yomi no Tsugai every single month, and when enough chapters come out, maybe I'll make a discussion or theory videos on this series as a whole. I'm not entirely sure, as I got a lot of other stuff planned for 2022 especially. And once again, thank you to everybody that helped me reach 1,000 subscribers. If you're just here for the Yomi no Tsugai content, I reached 1,000 subscribers around Christmas Eve, so I am very happy to have reached that huge milestone, and I'm looking forward to reaching the next milestone, which is probably going to be 5,000 subscribers. If I can get to that before the end of the year, that would be really amazing. But anyway, before we get into the actual review, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps. And also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the Greek Weeb, so that you guys can see what I'm up to and also get updates on future videos as well if the notification bell and stuff like that does not work for you, because I know that doesn't work for some subscribers sometimes. So follow me on Instagram and Twitter, as I will post when a new video is up every time. You go over there, and also check out my Patreon and Coffee accounts to help support the channel more directly. This will help me get more videos out a lot quicker and at much better quality. So if you want to, go and check out my Patreon and Coffee accounts. With all that said and done, let's get into Chapter 2 of Tsugai of the Underworld, titled Left and Right. And first of all, the whole cover page, I like that we finally got the actual color designs for the two characters that we saw at the end of the chapter. The Tsugai of Yuru, the main character. I like the whole red and white hair vibe. It does look nice on them with the contrast of the gray outfits. But enough about the color page. Let's get right into the chapter, as we start off a little bit after last week, where Yuru managed to somehow get two beings showing up out of nowhere that are his Tsugai. Two that seemed very powerful and saved him from a helicopter assault. But yeah, this chapter starts off where Asa was after Yuru was taken away by Dera, and we see that shadowy creature continuing to hold the woman that is stated to be Asa in place. But then, once Asa throws away Yuru's grandmother, the shadow creature begins to save her. Asa states that she will never forgive her people for what they've done, and that she will exact retribution, as she leaves the cell, with her passing by Danji and his mother, glancing at them, and then running away. Danji looks at the prison, and then we get a nice little flashback of Yuru and what I believe is his father, showing him the shortcut to the village with the Sanyu-sama statues, and that is a secret pathway that he only told Yuru. And he even states something very important: Sanyu-sama will always look over him. As we then cut back to the present during this nice little two-page spread, showing the two Tsugai that are pronounced as Sanyu-sama reintroducing themselves, and that they've been watching over Yuru this entire time, and that they will now be his Tsugai. And I like how we get this nice brief interaction, the big one that is just called You on the Right. I want to give them actual names, so I'm just going to call them Right and Left for now. He is kind of terrifying, grabbing Yuru's face, stating that he's kind of teary and fearful kid as a master. But anyway, Dera greets them and actually turns out that these two know who Dera is, and that he's a Tsugai himself apparently, which is something that I did not expect. And this chapter has a lot of things going on in it. But yeah, we go over the events of last chapter, how they took down one of the helicopters, and Dera says he's going to explain everything since it's a long story, but they can't do it right now. And says that there are two very dangerous people on the mountain, and they have to leave as safely as possible. As Wright very terrifyingly looks at Dera, stating he is not their master, and they won't obey any orders. Their master is Yuru, and they only obey him. And Dera and Yuru is just straight up confused and just shocked at everything that's going on, not knowing what the hell is happening, as Dera just saying, can you just make an exception this one time so he can explain everything to Yuru before we start doing everything, and to get off the mountain as quickly as possible. But then Gab shows up with her Tsugai, seeing two powerful Tsugai. He's like, oh man, I thought I wanted them to be weak. And she's even wondering whose Tsugai they belong to, as Dera is literally shocked that she is still up and running despite him throwing a grenade square in her face the last time they saw each other, and Yuru is just shocked at seeing the monster behind them. Gab states that her partner Tsugai is very sturdy, and not to call it a monster, and she then points at Yuru, asking if he is Yuru, a 16-year-old boy, and it's a little brief conversation in this last panel of this page, but Yuru says that he's 17, but apparently there's the year count is different in the lower lands, so he's technically 16. It's a whole weird thing, but at least it adds a little extra context to what this whole area is. It's a little cut off from the world, and I guess it has a different calendar, so like maybe a shorter year span or something. But then Gab looks right menacingly at them, stating that he's Asa's brother, and to accompany her. Yuru flashes back to the woman that states that she is in fact Asa, remembering to say she will kill everyone besides Yuru. And Yuru asks her a very important question. If the person who killed everyone in the village was her. She answers nonchalantly, yep. As you see Yuru clenching his fist with veins popping out in anger. Wright asks them if they want us to follow every word they say. They will follow every single command. But Yuru just states that he won't command them. And he just, based off the religion of the village, he just states that Sanyu-sama are patron gods. It would be presumptuous for him to command them. He is not going to command them, but he has two requests for them. One is to take the villagers who are still alive somewhere safe and protect them, and the other, the little girl, is his prey and not to interfere. As we get a very serious look on Yuru's face as he says, anything else, do as you wish. And Wright is just jovial and laughing, saying that their master is giving them free reign, and tells Left that it's great news. But Wright goes off to follow his commands as he disappears, going away from Gab and her Tsugai, stating that he's going to protect the villagers in the village and to take care, as this girl is pretty ferocious. As Left takes on the Tsugai, and I like the menacing shadowy panel showing that since the master commanded her to do as they will, this is her wish to fight off the Tsugai, as Yuru goes after Gab as he shoots her in her leg with the arrow as he prepares for another shot. Gab's Tsugai takes her away as they chase after them. Dara tries to get them to stop as they need to leave the mountain as quickly as they possibly can. Dara grabs the Sanyu-sama amulet and starts to chase after them. We then cut back to the village as we see a little girl being taken care of and woken up by Wright, as apparently she can't see him, so certain people cannot see Tsugai. It has to be a gift, or they have to have a Tsugai and then they can see Tsugai or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. This still needs to be a bit explained, but whatever. But Wright realizes that she can't see him, and then he just appears out of nowhere. So apparently some Tsugai can make themselves physically seen by other people if they so wish, maybe if they're just powerful enough, like Wright is. But as he says not to worry, that he'll take her somewhere safe, she passes out in utter shock. And apparently he's done this with multiple people, and that every time they see his face, especially with how he popped out of nowhere, they just straight up faint after seeing him. But it is shown that pretty much most of the adults were killed by Gab, but the children were left unattended. They were left unharmed. So it's possible that they don't want to kill any children, so they're not super ruthless. But just that Asa shows up, spots Wright, and Wright is just like happy that someone can see him. But Asa reaches out trying to use that exact same attack she did last chapter that blew apart the prison cell. We get a little interpretation of how this beam of light looks going towards Wright, but Wright rightfully pissed off at this, like, what are you doing all of a sudden, as we see him create like a monstrous dragon-like form from his head as he launches a screech attack to nullify what Asa just did, as he tells Asa that she's using dangerous things, and if she wants to fight, he's totally in. But his master, and she just runs away, cutting him off. He's like, people have no ears these days. But then he takes a sniff of the air, speculating who this girl actually is. We then cut back to the fight with Left and Yuru against Gab and her Tsugais, as Left is just casually ripping open the Tsugai's mouth as Gab is cowering behind. And Gab is trying to, like, force it closed using her connection with her Tsugai. And apparently it's 2 against 1, as her Tsugai is 2 Tsugai just working in tandem. I know, honestly, I like Arakawa's illustrations of like fury, rage, and just sort of overwhelming power. I love her artwork, so it's just really nice to see something like this. As Left just one more push opens the mouth of the Tsugai, separates them apart as Yuru gets another shot ready and shoots Gab in the shoulder. But then Asa shows up, breaking open where they are, with the debris falling on Left a little bit, just hitting her head for a second. Asa grabs Gab, but Yuru pops up over the rubble, telling them not to move. as he asks who they are, and Asa states that she is his sister, and that he is her big brother. He states that it's a lie, and Asa's not as tall as him, as this woman, but apparently people in the lower lands have better nutrition, and that he even screams at her saying that Asa isn't as mean as her. And she just states that a lot happened, but then Wright shows up telling them don't fight with family, as he states that the girl's blood smells exactly like Yuru's, and asks if they're siblings, much to Yuru's shock. But Yuru ends up asking the important question that I was asking last time: who was the Asa that carried out duties in the main district? And Asa says that it was an imposter. Asa ran away a long time ago from the village, and states it was exactly 10 years ago, so when she was like 6 years old. But their granny was afraid that Yuru would run away too, so he shackled Yuru there by creating an Asa imposter, using what I presume to be the grandmother Tsugai, so that Yuru wouldn't ever want to leave the village in search of his actual sister if his sister was still in the village. So this whole time, for the last 10 years, Yuru was just talking, interacting with a fake sister, an imposter, and this shakes him up to his very core, as while he doesn't want to believe it, his Tsugai state that they have the same blood in their, it fits a timetable from what I presume, because if it's 10 years ago, something might have happened, or something of the other, which we still need to get some context on. But I like how left and right are looking at Yuru, who is incredibly distraught. He's still furious, but very confused and angry. But Dara just stops Yuru in his tracks, holds him down, and states, "Sorry to interrupt this family reunion, but can they just call it a day?" He just straight up asked them, "Can we just call it a day for now? A lot's happened." And I like how Yuru's trying to get Dara to just straight up like stop what he's doing so he can get revenge or something like that. But Dara just states that Yuru is the one they're after, but they still don't know the powers of Asa, so there's no real way for them to combat her, well, in a more productive manner. It states that if he stays here in the village, it'll cause more damage to it. And some of the villagers are still alive, so Yuru begrudgingly puts his arrow away, basically telling her not to hurt the villagers anymore, and that he'll let them go, and telling them to leave. And Asa just states, "Very well, let's go," with Gab protesting to it, as Yuru just states goodbye, leaving with Dara and left and right. Gab states why didn't Asa just go up and catch him, but Asa just couldn't abandon Gab since she's wounded, and at least she knows that her brother is well. The arrows are removed from Gab, as, well, they have a nice little brief conversation, and I like the paneling that's done with Gab asking a question, or saying something, and Asa retorting, as she says that Yuru has some skills, and that he's alive. Asa, closing her eyes, says yeah, and then she begins to break down crying that her brother is alive, meaning that something happened, that she was afraid that something would happen to Yuru during the years that she was gone, afraid that he might have died or something happened to him. But he's alive and well, and that's all Asa really needs right now. But then that shockwave that we got at the beginning of the chapter shows up again, and apparently that is the ward, and apparently it's back up, so they have to leave as quickly as possible. And shown that the grandmother is the one that used the ward, so I think it's probably some sort of seal that's kept the village hidden all these years, as we see the fake Asa in the background grasping the gift that was given to her by Yuru. We then cut outside to some hikers, from what I can presume. Apparently they were talking about the helicopters are going on to rescue some hikers, which is the excuse. And they go over a little rumor that they've heard in this mountain area, and that apparently walking in the mountains and you suddenly stumble into another world, a village where there shouldn't be one. And when you return, there's nothing here. Right in front of them is like a stone pebble area covered in strings and a little bit of flags. So perhaps that is the village, but it is sealed away, so it's basically like that, like another world, another reality of sorts. We then see Dera and Yuru run past the hikers, as I like their nonchalant reactions to them. They're either porters or something, so just straight up hunters. But then a brief gust of wind knocks away their hats and equipment real quick. And apparently it was left and right, as they just flat out just ran past them. Yuru states that the village is out of sight, meaning that the war is up again. Yuru asks that if they can return to the village, and if they can't. Dero says that he can go if he wants to, but people who know the village's location and can break the ward keeping it safe showed up, which means their aim is Yuru himself. So it's meaningless for him to hide in the village now, as he's sad and distraught by this, as he basically left everyone he knew behind. And Data states that it's better not to return, and it's better to melt into the crowds of the lower lands. As a car pulls up, and apparently this is the woman that he was talking to earlier, Hana, stating that he's sorry for the wait, as she starts yelling at him, "What is this?" She heard that it would be humans, but he didn't say anything about Tsugai, as he just states he's sorry. Yuru just shocked at looking at right now, and the two Tsugai just surprised that she can see them as the chapter ends. And I like how Yuru looks a lot like Ed and Alphonse from Fullmetal Alchemist. I like how Hana, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, looks like shares a similar design to Rose from Fullmetal Alchemist. So I like how arakawa just taking like similar designs and reinterpreting them with different characters. It's something that a lot of mangakas or just artists in general with their works do, and I like seeing that done. It's a nice little Easter egg of sorts if you read the previous series. But yeah, that was chapter 2 of Yomi no Tsugai. We got a little bit of interactions, and we got pretty much full-on confirmation that the Asa we saw is in fact the actual Asa. She ran away 10 years ago, and the reason she came back was to check on Yuru and take him out of the village. Now, why the village was sealed off in the first place is beyond me. And who are the two Tsugai really? I mean, they don't seem like bad people. They just want to follow their master's commands and such like that. So there's probably some bigger lore to the world in how Tsugai work. So we're probably going to learn about this in the upcoming chapters, which is probably going to be the next couple of months. But yeah, that was Yomi no Tsugai chapter 2. We got some nice little action panels. We got confirmation that the ward is in fact a barrier. So I'm liking that answer was questioned literally in the very next chapter. And apparently it's just cut off from the outside world, like maybe like a little pocket dimension using some magic. So it's something that I really did enjoy. But overall, what did you guys think? What do you think of the progression of the story? What do you think of how Yudo's basically going to be going into a fish out of water scenario? How strong do you think his Tsugai are? How do you think the Tsugai contract thing works? I think that's a contract that he has with the two Tsugai now. And just what do you think the story is going towards in general? As right now, this whole thing is probably them running away from Asa and her people, and I feel like this might be more morally gray, and there might be some bigger threat that's going to be revealed somewhere down the road. As Asa and Gab, well, Gab just sort of murdered a bunch of people, same with Asa, but Asa does show compassion for her brother, and she doesn't want to abandon one of her comrades, one of her friends. So, while Asa is still willing to kill people, it's clear that it's more out of a sense of revenge, and believing that they wanted to keep her brother away from her, or just to straight up kill him if things go bad. But when it comes to people she does care about, or in this case with Gab, children, who basically more or less have to know nothing, and Danji with Asa, they have a type of moral code from what I can tell. So what do you guys think is going to happen next? Thoughts and opinions down below. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really does help. And with all that said and done, I'll see you guys next month with the next Yomi no Tsugai chapter review. And I hope you all have an awesome day.